Hello everyone, this is Indrajit Ganguly and welcome back to your history class in the virtual platform. Dear students, in this module I am continuing with my previous day's topic, that is chapter number 3 from NCERT History, An Empire Across 3 Continents. I hope you remember that in my last 2 videos I have discussed with you the political structure and nature of the society in Roman Empire. So, in this module, I am going to discuss another important topic from this chapter, that is economic expansion in the Roman Empire. So, let's have a look into the topic. As you can see that the Roman Empire had a substantial economic infrastructure of harbours, mines, quarries, brickyards, olive oil factories, etc. Wheat, wine and olive oil were traded and consumed in huge quantities, and they came from Spain, Gallic provinces, North Africa and Egypt. Wine and olive oil were transported in containers called amphorae. Spanish olive oil had a huge demand and was carried in a container called Dressel 20. So don't mix up. Amphor olive oil, a general olive oil, wine and olive oil were transported in a container called amphor, but specifically Spanish olive oil transported in a container called Dressel 20. Dressel 20 found in the Mediterranean, which meant Spanish olive oil had a huge market. Now the question is why? Because this would only have happened because Spanish producers supplied better quality of oil at lower prices. So that's why Spanish olive oil had a huge market in all over the Roman Empire. Later, after 425 CE, Aegean, Turkey, Syria, Palestine became major exports of wine and olive oil. Campania in Italy, Fayum in Egypt, Galilee and Byzantium in Tunisia, Baetica in Spain were all among the most densely settled or wealthiest part of the empire. The best kinds of wine came from Campania. Large quantities wheat exported to Rome from Sicily and Byzantium. On the other hand, large expanses of Roman territory were in much less advanced state. For example, transhumance was widespread in the countryside of Numidia. Transhumance was semi-nomadic pastoral communities, and they lived widespread area of the Roman Empire. These pastoral and semi-nomadic communities carried their oven-shaped hut called Mappalia. In Spain, north was less developed, inhabited by a Celtic-speaking peasantry, and lived in a hilltop villages called Casella. This story is about the ancient world of Roman Empire. So generally, economic and cultural life was primitive and backward. But there is some advancement also. As you can see that the use of hydraulic mining techniques in the Spanish gold and silver mines was there. In the first centuries, a large quantity of minerals were extracted from these mines. The existence of well-organized commercial and banking networks. Lastly, the widespread use of money strengthened the economy. So, this is about the economic expansion of the Roman Empire, and you can understand, I hope you can understand that how economy of the Roman Empire was much more organized and developed. So let's move on to our next topic, that is controlling workers. Okay, our next topic, that is controlling workers. Okay, remember students, slaves were very crucial in the Roman economy. In my last class, I have discussed with you, slaves were usually part of the family system. Okay, and Roman upper class were often brutal towards the slaves, but ordinary people show much more compassion towards the slaves. In your book, that is NCERT page number 68, there is a passage called On the Treatment of Slaves. You can understand the condition of slaves in the Roman Empire, that a city prefect called Lucius Pedanius Secundus. I am repeating once again, Pedanius Secundus. He was murdered by one of his slaves. So the Roman Senate declared that all the slaves will be executed because of the murder of these city prefects. So you can understand that the condition of the slaves in the Roman Empire. So basically there are lots of slave revolts are there in the Roman Empire because the condition of the slaves were not so very easy, not so very good. And gradually, and I think you know that basically in the Roman Empire, the slaves, they have basically taken from the defeated region. The Roman Empire have a vast region, and it was expanded towards North Africa and Eastern Europe. So whenever the Roman Empire captured the region, the defeated people usually considered as the slaves. But gradually the supply of slaves declined, because as time warfare ended, so obviously the supply of slaves declined. But remember that the maintaining of the slave was a very there was a lots of investment for the owners of the slave. Just take an example from our daily life. I think in our house basically domestic servants are mostly there, right? And we usually provide domestic servants monthly wages, right? And therefore plus we usually provide them bonus in the puja vacation, and sometimes we offer them food. But suppose if we have a permanent servant in our house, then what will be in the case? So then we have to provide them salary, monthly salary, right? And we have to provide them at least 3 times food in a day, and obviously 2 times clothes in a year. So you can understood that what was the difference between the permanent servant and domestic servant. The expenditure become hugely increased. So the same condition was the Roman owners, who usually maintained the slaves. So they decided to free these slaves. So in this way, the slavery system was generally declined from the late Roman Empire. Sometimes there is a story that the owners they freed their slaves, and sometimes they gave the charge of their business, and they usually maintain their business. In this way, the condition of these slaves were generally changing in the late Roman Empire, and finally the slavery system was totally ended in the late Roman Empire. So in your book, that is page number 68, there is a topic called controlling workers. Okay, in this topic there are lots of stories are there about the condition of the slaves. Please go through these topics because you will be able to understand the condition of the slaves in the Roman Empire. Okay, and please read this passage for your source based question. This is it for today. In my next class I will tell you about the social hierarchy in the Roman Empire. Thank you and have a nice day.